Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Well, today we're going to be talking about something I think we all struggle with from time to time,
Oh, yeah.
and that's conflict resolution.
Ooh,
Um,
interesting.
but specifically in relationships.
Okay.
So we're going to be looking at relationship conflict resolution
Yeah.
as our source material.
Awesome.
And one of the most surprising things that I read in this is that conflict can actually be good for a relationship.
It can be a little bit paradoxical, can it?
Yeah.
I mean, we try to avoid conflict, but the truth is conflict is inevitable.
Right.
And so the real question is, how do we handle conflict in a way that's actually productive
Right.
and actually strengthens the relationship rather than, tears it apart?
Right. And relationship conflict resolution really drives home the point that the way you resolve conflict is really linked to how long the relationship's going to last.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's not like ignoring a problem is going to make it go away.
Right.
It's like that whole straw that breaks the camel's back thing.
Exactly. Every little unresolved conflict is just another straw on that camel's back.
Right.
And eventually it's too much.
So it's like you're just letting it build and build.
Yeah, and that's where those practical techniques from relationship conflict resolution come in.
Okay.
One that I thought was really good is the 4-part conflict resolution message.
Ooh, okay. I like that. So is that like kind of taking the blame out of the equation?
Exactly. Instead of pointing fingers, it's about finding a solution that works for both people.
Okay.
And the first part of that message is when you.
Okay.
And this is where you describe the behavior that's bothering you.
Okay. So instead of saying you're always late,
Right.
you could say when you were late to our dinner reservation last night.
Perfect example. You're focusing on a specific instance without judgment, which is
Yeah.
really important because, especially when we look at something like attachment theory, people with insecure attachment styles are very sensitive to criticism.
Right. They feel very attacked.
Exactly. So sticking to facts and using I statements makes it a lot safer to communicate.
Okay. So you're speaking their language a little bit more.
Exactly.
Okay. So after when you
Yeah,
comes I feel.
that's right. You're expressing your own emotions without blaming them.
Okay. So for example, I felt hurt and disappointed
Exactly.
because.
Yes, that's the third part. You're explaining the impact of their behavior.
Okay.
So you might say, because it made me feel like our plans weren't important to you.
So you're kind of connecting the dots for them.
Exactly. Sometimes people don't realize the impact of their actions, and this helps them understand.
Okay. And lastly, we wrap it up with I would like.
Yes, this is where you propose a solution.
Okay.
So, for example, I would like us to communicate better about our schedules so this doesn't happen again.
Right. So it's proactive.
Exactly. You're focusing on a positive change.
Okay.
And what I think is really cool is that relationship conflict resolution doesn't just talk about techniques. It also talks about the psychology behind conflict.
Right. Because it's not all just surface level.
Exactly. It looks at how our past experiences, our thought patterns, and even societal factors shape the way we handle conflict.
Right. Okay. So we're bringing all this baggage to the table without even realizing it.
We are. And for example, cognitive behavioral theory talks about how our thoughts influence our emotions and behavior.
Okay.
So if you tend to assume the worst about your partner, you're more likely to create unnecessary conflict.
It's like you're almost writing the story in your head before it even happens.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And this is where emotional intelligence comes in, which is something else that relationship conflict resolution talks about.
Yeah.
The better you are at managing your own emotions and understanding your partner's emotions, the more likely you are to navigate conflict effectively.
Okay. So it's like being an emotional detective a little bit.
Exactly. You're not just listening to the words, you're paying attention to the underlying emotions.
Right.
And then on top of all of that, we also have to consider the sociology of conflict.
Okay. So it's not just individual. They're like the big picture stuff too.
Exactly. Power dynamics, cultural norms, all of these things can affect how we resolve conflict.
Okay. So how does sociology play into all this?
Well, think about power imbalances in a relationship,
Okay.
often shaped by societal norms.
Right.
If one partner constantly feels unheard or dismissed,
Yeah.
it creates a dynamic that's just not conducive to resolution.
Right. It's like an uneven playing field from the start.
Exactly.
So even like who gets to be upset or who gets to be angry is like kind of predetermined in a way.
It can be influenced by those societal norms,
I think
absolutely.
that's a lot to think about.
It is. And relationship conflict resolution makes us aware of all of these things.
Okay.
And remember social exchange theory.
Remind me.
It's the idea that we're always subconsciously weighing the costs and rewards of our relationships.
Yeah.
So if the cost of conflict outweighs the rewards of the relationship, it can really put a strain on things.
So it's like, is it worth it? Okay, I can see how that would factor into how you approach resolving a conflict.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about, individual stuff, psychology, but we've also touched on this bigger picture sociology.
Right.
Are there any specific tools or strategies that we can use to kind of like navigate all this?
Absolutely. Relationship conflict resolution has got you covered.
Okay, good.
One that stood out to me is the 8-step procedure for resolving conflict.
Oh, okay, step-by-step guide.
Exactly. And it's all about preventing those big blow-ups.
Okay.
So step 1 is presenting the issue calmly and neutrally.
Okay.
Instead of being like, you always do this.
Yeah.
It's more like, hey, I'm feeling this way and I'd like to work through it together.
Right, okay, so it's a very collaborative approach.
Exactly.
Okay, what's step 2?
Step 2 is clarifying the issue.
Okay.
Making sure you're both on the same page about what's actually being discussed.
Okay, so not just assuming you know what each other's talking about.
Exactly. And this is where reflective listening comes in, which is a key technique highlighted in relationship conflict resolution.
So it's not just hearing, but like actually understanding.
Exactly. You're reflecting back your partner's feelings and needs.
Okay.
So step 3 is all about empathy.
Okay.
Really trying to understand where they're coming from.
Okay, so we've set the stage.
Hmm.
We're both calm. We understand each other.
Exactly.
Where do we go from there?
Then step 4 is where you share your perspective,
Okay.
but you do it in a way that's understanding, not defensive.
Right.
You're owning your feelings and explaining your side of things.
Okay.
And if you're not sure if they get it, relationship conflict resolution suggests actually asking them to paraphrase what you just said.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So then you know if you're both on the same page.
Right.
Step 5 is where you start looking for solutions.
Okay.
What are your mutual goals? What are you both trying to achieve?
So again, very collaborative.
Exactly. You're on the same team.
Right.
You're not trying to win.
Okay.
Then step 6 is brainstorming.
Coming up with as many potential solutions as possible.
Oh, I like that. So you're not limiting yourself.
Exactly.
Okay.
Step 7 is choosing the best solution together.
Okay.
And then step 8 is all about accountability.
Oh, okay. Making sure you're both following through.
Exactly. You're checking in with each other, making adjustments if needed.
Okay, so this is an ongoing process.
It is. Conflict resolution isn't a one-time fix. It's something you keep working on.
Okay. And then you also mentioned reflective listening earlier.
Yes. That's another key takeaway from relationship conflict resolution.
So how does that work in practice?
Let's say your partner says, I feel frustrated when you don't help out more around the house.
Okay, yeah, classic.
Instead of getting defensive, you could say, so you're feeling frustrated because you feel like you're carrying too much of the load. Is that right?
Oh, so you're not just repeating their words, you're reflecting their feelings.
Exactly.
Ah,
That validation can be really powerful.
right, because then they feel heard.
Exactly.
Wow, this is a lot to take in. It is. Relationship conflict resolution really does a great job of weaving together these practical techniques with those deeper psychological and sociological insights.
Right. And it really highlights that conflict, when approached the right way, can actually be an opportunity to grow.
Absolutely. It's not about winning or losing, it's about understanding and connection.
So it's not just about fixing the problem. It's about strengthening the relationship as a whole.
Exactly. And we'll talk more about how to do that in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, sounds good.
So we've been talking a lot about conflict in romantic relationships.
Right.
But these techniques can actually be applied to all sorts of conflicts.
Oh, yeah, totally.
What about like conflict at work?
Right?
You know, with coworkers or bosses.
Yeah.
Remember that 4-part conflict resolution message?
The when you, I feel.
Yeah.
Because.
I would like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, think about how helpful that could be in a workplace disagreement.
Oh, totally. I can already see it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like imagine a coworker who constantly interrupts you in meetings.
Ugh, yeah.
It's so frustrating.
You feel like you're not being heard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So instead of just like fuming silently or sending a passive-aggressive email,
Right.
you could try this approach.
Okay.
You could say, when you cut me off during the meeting, I felt frustrated because it made me feel like my contributions weren't valued. I would like for us to take turns speaking and make sure everyone has a chance to share their ideas.
Right. And it's so much more direct and clear
It is.
than just like letting it fester.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what about those really difficult people?
Right? Like, what if they just thrive on conflict?
Oh, yeah, those
Or
people.
they always play the victim.
Oh, it's so tough.
Yeah.
And relationship conflict resolution acknowledges that not every conflict is going to have a happy ending,
Right.
but the point is to manage your own communication.
Right. So you can only control yourself.
Exactly. You can't control how other people react,
Right.
but you can control how you respond.
Okay. So even if they're not being constructive, I can still try to stay calm.
And just focus on expressing myself clearly.
Yes. And sometimes the most empowering thing you can do is just disengage.
Right, just walk away.
Exactly.
But that's hard.
It is, especially for people who want to fix things
Right.
or make everyone happy.
Yeah, I'm definitely a fixer.
Me too. And it's tough.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that you're not responsible for other people's emotions.
Right.
And going back to attachment styles,
Yeah.
someone with an anxious attachment style might find it really hard to disengage.
Because they want that connection.
Exactly. They crave reassurance.
Right.
So just being aware of your own tendencies can help you approach conflict with more self-compassion.
It's like giving yourself permission to step back.
Exactly.
Okay, but what about those conflicts where you can't just walk away?
Right.
Like imagine finding out about financial infidelity in your relationship.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a tough one.
You can't just ignore that.
No, absolutely not.
Right.
And that's where that 8-step procedure can be really helpful. Think about how you could use those steps to address something like financial infidelity.
Right.
Step 1 is presenting the issue calmly,
Okay.
sticking to the facts, not accusations.
Right.
You might say something like, I found these discrepancies in our accounts and I'm feeling really hurt and confused. I'd like to understand what happened.
Okay, so you're acknowledging your emotions, but you're not attacking them.
Exactly.
But how do you even stay calm in a situation like that?
That's where emotional intelligence comes in.
Right.
It's about being aware of your emotional state and choosing to respond thoughtfully rather than just reacting impulsively.
Right, taking a breath.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that pause can actually create space for empathy.
Oh, how so?
Well, imagine your partner is feeling ashamed or guilty.
Right.
By staying calm, you're creating an environment where they might feel safe enough to open up.
That makes sense.
Right. It's like you're saying, I'm here for you. Let's talk about this.
Right, so the way you approach the conflict can actually influence how they respond.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that conflict doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Right.
We're all influenced by societal norms, cultural expectations, power dynamics.
Right.
All of these things can affect how conflict unfolds.
So it's not just our own individual stuff. It's like this bigger context.
Exactly. Relationship conflict resolution really emphasizes that.
Okay, so how do we even begin to unpack all of that?
Well, awareness is the first step.
Right.
Just recognizing that these external factors might be playing a role
Okay.
and challenging those norms that perpetuate unhealthy communication patterns.
Like rewriting the rules.
Exactly. It's about creating relationships that are based on mutual respect, open communication, and a genuine desire to understand each other.
And that brings us back to the idea of conflict as an opportunity for growth.
Right.
Like you were saying before. So conflict can actually make a relationship stronger.
It can when it's approached constructively.
Okay.
It's about seeing those disagreements as chances to learn and grow and deepen our connection.
So it's not about avoiding conflict altogether.
No.
It's about changing how we view it.
Exactly. And relationship conflict resolution puts it beautifully.
Okay.
It says that conflict should be seen as a bridge, not a wall.
I love that.
Right. It's about connection, not separation.
Right.
It's about shifting from a me versus you mentality
Yeah.
to a we're in this together approach.
Right, because you're a team.
Exactly. And when we see conflict as a bridge,
Yeah.
it becomes an opportunity to connect on a deeper level, learn more about each other,
Right.
and ultimately strengthen the foundation of the relationship.
This is making me feel a lot more optimistic about conflict.
Me too. It's not something to be feared.
Right.
It's something to be embraced
Okay.
as a chance to grow and connect.
So mastering these conflict resolution techniques,
Yes.
it's not just about fixing problems. It's about building a stronger, more fulfilling relationship.
Absolutely. Relationship conflict resolution really highlights that connection.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that even amidst disagreements,
Mm-hmm.
there's still this potential for deeper understanding and intimacy.
Right. And it takes practice.
It does.
Anything else?
Right. It's like learning a new skill.
Yeah.
The more you practice, the better you get at it.
And the less scary it becomes.
Exactly. And the more you realize that conflict doesn't have to be destructive.
Right.
It can actually be a catalyst for creating stronger, more authentic, more fulfilling relationships.
I love that.
Yeah,
This has been such a helpful conversation.
it has.
I feel like relationship conflict resolution
Yeah,
has really changed how I think about conflict.
me too.
And it's given me so many tools to work with.
Yeah, it's a really great resource.
It is.
And for any of our listeners who want to dive deeper,
Yeah,
we highly recommend checking out Relationship Conflict Resolution.
definitely.
It's full of wisdom and practical advice.
Yeah. So as we wrap up,
Okay.
what's one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I think the biggest thing for me is remembering that conflict is inevitable,
Right. We can't avoid it.
but it's how we choose to handle it that really matters.
Okay.
It's about approaching disagreements with curiosity, empathy, and a genuine desire to understand each other.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's about seeing conflict as an opportunity for growth and connection.
Exactly. Not a battle to be won or avoided.
Right.
It's about working together
Right.
to build something stronger.
And it's about remembering that relationships are at the heart of a happy and meaningful life.
Absolutely.
And learning to navigate conflict effectively is one of the most valuable things we can do.
For ourselves and for the people we care about.
So to all our amazing listeners out there,
Yes.
we encourage you to take these insights,
These tools.
these perspectives.
And start putting them into practice in your own lives.
Remember, conflict doesn't have to be scary.
It can be a path to deeper intimacy
Greater understanding
and a more fulfilling, authentic connection.
with the people who matter most.
Until next time,
Keep diving deep
keep learning.
and keep growing.
It's not about living in some conflict-free fantasy world.
Right. Like that doesn't exist.
It doesn't, and honestly, I don't think it would be much fun.
Probably not.
Where's the growth?
Right, exactly.
Where's the challenge?
Yeah, so it's not about never disagreeing. It's more about how we handle those disagreements.
That's it.
So how do we
Yeah.
get better at that?
Well, relationship conflict resolution talks a lot about shifting our perspective.
Okay.
Instead of seeing conflict as this big, scary thing,
Right.
we need to start seeing it as an opportunity.
Ooh, I like that.
An opportunity for what?
Yeah, for what?
For growth, for connection, for deeper intimacy.
Okay, so it's like conflict can actually bring us closer together.
Exactly. And that's what relationship conflict resolution really emphasizes.
Right.
It's not about winning or losing. It's about building something stronger together.
That makes so much sense.
Right. It's like we're on the same team.
Yeah, we're partners.
Exactly. Partners in life, partners in conflict.
I love that.
And just like any partnership, it takes work.
Right.
Effort, communication.
It does, and it takes practice.
Okay, so the more we practice these techniques, the better we get at resolving conflict.
Exactly. It's like learning any new skill.
Yeah.
The more you do it, the more natural it becomes.
And the less scary it seems.
Absolutely. You start to realize that conflict doesn't have to be this big dramatic thing.
Right.
It can actually be a pretty normal, healthy part of any relationship.
This is making me feel a lot better about all the disagreements I have with my partner.
Me too.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think this deep dive has been really helpful for me personally.
Yeah, me too.
Relationship conflict resolution really offers a fresh perspective.
It does.
It's not about avoiding conflict. It's about transforming it.
Into something positive.
Exactly. And if our listeners are interested in learning more,
Yes.
I highly recommend checking out Relationship Conflict Resolution for themselves.
It's a fantastic resource.
It is.
Packed with practical tips and insights.
And I think the biggest takeaway
Yeah.
is that conflict doesn't have to be a negative experience. Right. It's all about how we choose to approach it.
Exactly. We can choose to see it as an opportunity for growth,
For connection.
for deeper intimacy.
So to all our amazing listeners out there,
Keep these insights in mind. Keep practicing these techniques.
and remember, conflict can be a bridge to a stronger, more fulfilling relationship.
Absolutely. That's all for this deep dive.
Thanks for